Hello, true crimeers. This is another true crime in a shortish amount of time, and it is the case of Trudy Darby. Viewer discretion is advised. Trudy Jean Darby was born on August 5th, 1948, and that was in Alameda, California. Unfortunately, I don't really know much about Trudy or her past or her history. I do know that on January 4th, 1967, she got married, and her husband would go on to have 2 children. Now, at some point, Trudy would move to the Max Creek area of Missouri. I don't know if she did that before she met her husband or if this was afterwards, but that is where she was living at the time of this case, in Max Creek. And that's in the Camden County area. At the time, Trudy was working at a gas station, which also housed the K&D convenience store. She typically worked the late evening shift, and on January 19th, 1991, that's exactly what she was doing. At approximately 10 p.m., Trudy was getting ready to close the store down. And at around that same time, she actually called her son and said to him, "There are some suspicious looking dudes kind of lingering outside the front of the store, kind of just like peering in occasionally. They're not coming in, but they keep looking in." So she asked her son, "Hey, can you come down here just so I can get out, safely, because I feel kind of off about these guys." But at some point during that call, the call disconnected. And Trudy's son immediately got into his vehicle the moment basically this happened, and he drove to the K&D convenience store. This was about an 8 to 10 minute drive for him. When he arrived, Trudy was not there. And there were also no people sitting outside the store. So at that point, nothing from a first glance looks like anything went wrong, but Trudy obviously was gone, so something was wrong. And so he called police. Police arrive within a few minutes. They enter the store. They see that Trudy's coat is still there where she always left it. Her purse, her wallet, everything, all of her belongings are still there. The cash register was opened, and then another individual who worked there would later say that about, $200-ish or so was missing from the till. From what I understand, there really wasn't any cameras that they could look at to see what may have transpired. There were no physical witnesses who were there who saw what happened or heard what happened. And there was no sign of like a struggle within the actual convenience store. So they're thinking that she must have been held up at gunpoint, she didn't resist, and they took the money and then just took her. There was no blood, there was no foreign fingerprints, there was nothing out of the ordinary that would have said, like, who did this. Now, there were apparently people who did see a suspicious looking man near that convenience store sometime earlier that evening, before all of this took place, and a composite drawing of that man was made and it was distributed out. And no one looked at the drawing and said, "Oh yeah, that's me," or "Oh yeah, that's my friend." And no one really came forward to identify the composite drawing. And that kind of raised a red flag that that may have been the guy or one of the guys who did this. But they search everywhere. They look through the woods. They're looking through that entire surrounding area, anything they can do to try to find Trudy. But they have no luck for the first couple days. 2 days after her disappearance, Trudy is finally located. And how she was located was that some local people in the area, when they heard about Trudy's story, they remembered that on the night that she would have disappeared, that she would have been abducted, this person heard what sounded like a gunshot. Later on, that man would go out to the area where he thinks that gunshot came from, and he saw some like blood and hair on this like gravel road. And that's when he called police to let them know all of this. And so from there, police then they're on foot, they're on, looking with dogs, and they got a helicopter up in the air and they're searching. And finally, it's in that area where they find Trudy's body. She was in, I guess, a nearby body of water, and floating a little upstream from where her body was found, they found some shell casings. Trudy's cause of death was that she had 2 bullet wounds to her head. And the coroner also determined that Trudy had been beaten a little bit and that she was, in fact, sexually assaulted. The investigation, at first, they got really nowhere. There just wasn't, because there was no witnesses who physically saw this abduction. It was just really hard to like get any kind of leads or tips, and they really weren't able to make much progress on this investigation. And so in 1992, our favorite show, Unsolved Mysteries, aired this case. And they aired it in kind of like, it wasn't just her case by itself. It was a mixed, like a couple other cases that were like similar that happened in the area. They were talking about primarily the Angela Hammond disappearance, which is one of the more terrifying missing persons cases. Angela Hammond she was talking on a payphone to her boyfriend, and she was literally abducted from that payphone while on the call, and her boyfriend heard the scream and everything, and the boyfriend went out and basically drove to that payphone area, and he saw a car fly by, and it looked like Angela inside screaming, and Angela has never been found, and in her case is still unsolved. But about 2 years or so after Trudy's murder, police were finally given a tip. A friend of a man named Jesse Rush, who was, I think, 15 or 16 years old at the time when the murder took place. Well, a friend of Jesse's said that Jesse had confessed to being involved in the murder of Trudy Darby, and that he did it with his half-brother. His name was Marvin Chaney. Marvin would have been about 31 or so when the murder actually happened. So the friend agreed to let the police secretly basically put a recording device on her and see if she could try to get Jesse to talk about it again. And he did. And so they got his basically confession on tape. And what he said was that he and Marvin went to the K&D that night. They were loitering around the store. So basically the men that Trudy had told her son they're lingering were her eventual captors and killers, that they went in there planning to rob her and abduct her. And they, according to Jesse, he said that we told Trudy, if you go to anyone, we're going to find you and we're going to kill you. But something changed where they decided to both sexually assault Trudy. I think they said she was sexually assaulted at least twice, maybe 3 times. And then they shot her in her head. And then Jesse says they then drove her to the area where eventually she was found. And they realized that the 42-year-old mother of 2 wasn't dead yet. So they fired another shot into her head. And that's the gunshot that one individual heard. And then they put her in the river. So Jesse Rush was then arrested. And when he spoke directly to the detectives, he once again confessed. He basically repeated everything he told his friend and repeated everything he said on that audio tape. While in jail, he confessed to like 2 or 3 other inmates. He wrote people letters confessing to it. I mean, it was clear he really was confessing to this murder, and he knew details about it that nobody else would have known, that only police knew. So they knew they had him at least. Marvin Chaney, however, said, I was not involved in that. That wasn't me. That was just him. So I don't know why he's throwing me under the bus, but But Trudy did say there were at least 2 men loitering outside the store that she could see. So police had a pretty good idea that 2 men were definitely involved in this at least. Now, at first, he said, well, my alibi is I was with my wife that entire night, and she'll back me up. And she did. She initially said, yeah, I was with him that night. But then, sometime shortly after that, when she was able to speak to police kind of without Marvin knowing, she said, listen, I lied about the alibi because I'm terrified of him. He's a very scary person, and I don't know what he would do to me. But she came and said, listen, but I lied. He was not with me that night. He was definitely not in the house. So in March of 1996, Jesse Rush would go to trial, and he was convicted of kidnapping, sexual assault, and first-degree murder. he was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Marvin Chaney apparently had a change of heart because he would end up pleading guilty to basically the same charges. He too was sentenced to life in prison without parole. There is speculation that Marvin Chaney, at least, and if not also Jesse Rush, may have actually been involved in the Angela Hammond abduction, but they don't have proof or evidence of it. It is at this point really just more of a theory. They do believe that Marvin Chaney may have been involved in other murders, but as of right now, they don't have any kind of physical proof to say that for sure. So it was pretty much all squared away and done. Except in 2022, Jesse Rush, who was 47 years old at that time, was released. And this is because there had been a much earlier Supreme Court ruling that basically said it was cruel and unusual, essentially, to sentence a minor to life in prison without parole. Meaning that when the person committed the actual crime, whatever age they were at that time, that is the age that applies to this, not the age they were when they were convicted of the actual crime. Jesse Rush was about 15 or 16 years old when Trudy Darby was murdered. And he was like around 19 or so when he was convicted of the actual crime. So because of that, they basically said, we gotta let him go. He spent something like a little over 20 years in prison, and he was released into some kind of like residential parole facility, and he is out and about walking around freely. To those who've been around my account long enough, you know that I'm one of those like, listen, they were old enough to decide to commit that horrible crime. They were old enough to know right from wrong. They were old enough to know that sexually assaulting anyone, that's an adult decision. They made the adult decision to abduct her, made the adult decision to murder her. All adult decisions that they were of sound mind doing it. So they should be treated like an adult, in my opinion. He should be in prison for the rest of his life. But I don't make the rules. So Trudy Darby, this loving, caring mother who was just trying to make ends meet, just to get out of the house, to help support the family. She was scared of these people that night, and she was just 10 minutes away from not being killed, unfortunately. It's just so sad, like how close she was. Just 10 minutes, 10 minutes. And we wouldn't be telling the story, maybe. We don't know. But at least Trudy and her family got the justice they rightfully deserved. But that is it for this case, true crime, a Rooney Dooney Dingleberry Dongle Dong 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 Dongles. I keep adding to it and it's just dumb. More dumb every time. More dumb? I don't know. Anyway, hi, I'm Mike. If you're tripped, fallen, and stumbled your way into this account for the first time, I tell true crime stories, obviously. I tell them here on YouTube 3 days a week. And then I also tell multiple true crime stories in short form over on TikTok. So please subscribe to me here, give this video a like if you want to. And then if you want to, hop over to my TikTok. The link is in the link tree in the description of this video and all my videos below. And yeah, I just hit 3 million followers, so yay. So feel free to join the crew. And yeah, but that is it for this video. So we will see you for the next case. What is today? I'm posting this on Monday. I'll see you Wednesday. I'll see you Wednesday for the next case. Or if you're seeing this in the future, it could be a Thursday, and this is all a lie, and it's not gonna be Wednesday. If you're watching this right now, in current present time, well, that'll be Sunday, because I'm filming this on Sunday. You know what, Mike? Just stop. Just stop. They don't need to know about time travel and all of that weird shit. Just end the video, Mike, and say goodbye. Okay.